Well, good afternoon or morning, wherever you are listening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of DIRTBAGZ, the podcast about everything off-road. So today it's just going to be me and Danny Curran having a little chat via the magic of the internet and a little bit of video camera as well here. We're moving forward in the world of technology, but look, we were just in a few different locations. I'm at work, DC's at home, and we just thought, I haven't spoken about race cars for a little while, so let's get together and talk about it. What's going on, Danny Curran?
Oh, listen, I'm living the dream, mate. Having the best time of my life, just down in the Y-Town Massive as I like to hang out. But, here to talk all things dirt sports, talk about some new cars, some events that are happening soon. And I'm pumped, mate. I hope you're as pumped as I am.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited. I have a bit of a mundane voice and a face for podcasting, they say. I'm not sure what this video stuff is all about, but you are right, DC. There are some awesome new cars coming into the country at this point in time. A couple of trophy trucks, or a new buggy as well. So we'll sit down and we'll have a bit of a chat. Which one do you reckon we talk about first?
Oh, listen, we'd be mad not to start with the trophy trucks, particularly the one that's in the air right now, the G6, as you'd say. It really is. It's on the flight. It almost leads to its own story. But yeah,
like
mate.
That, what was that song? Like a G6?
Definitely, mate. Now, the big key to that is that obviously we're talking about Paul Wheel, which is PWR's new G6 Geyser trophy truck. And that's going to be a big hitter, Josh. Paul's been really stepping up the game. He's been in an older 6100 style Geyser truck for a long time. And now to go to the G6, I mean, it's lower, it's sleeker, it's got more technological advanced suspension in it. Like the guys at Geyser are really pushing the limits with these G6s. And, this is the same style of thing. Obviously, they had a bigger G6, but this is the one that Ken Block had. And you see how just frighteningly fast they go over the big whoops and that sort of stuff, on the big Fox shocks. And Paul Wheel's really stepped it up with this one. I mean, he's gone the Dugan's motor combo, which, I mean, we know how fast Dugan's motors are. He's gone the Albin's 6-speed. Now, that's an interesting one, Josh. I wanted to talk to you about it. There's a bit of a thought, obviously, nowadays. I know your opinion, Josh, because we talk about this stuff a lot. You wouldn't buy a trophy truck now without a manual gearbox. There's so many fantastic. I mean, obviously, these are, if you're listening along at home, let's get really down to the basics. When we talk about these manual gearboxes, we are talking exactly what you think. They'll be a sequential gearbox, but they are a manual, but they run a torque converter. Now, Josh, obviously that's running off a power steering style pump that's running off your motor. So it gives converter line pressure. And, as you rev the motor up, the pressure goes up, get drive to the wheels. But essentially they are a manual gearbox. They've got dog engagements and all the stuff that you'd expect out of a manual, but with a converter. Again, you really wouldn't be caught dead building a trophy truck without one of these Fortons or, there's all sorts of sequential gearboxes now. And obviously Albin's, mate, the Australians out of, down south. And they're a big player now. I mean, ever since Robbie Gordon went to one in the 77, we really haven't looked back, have we?
No, and switched to the Albins in the 77 for Parker 425 and just blitzed them on debut. And from then on, I think it pretty much changed the game. Like you said, and I guess it's just simple mathematics and simple numbers. Most automatic transmissions are 3 gears, and you talk about like the Albins are 5s, 6s, some of the Albins. Mason-Matics make a 5-speed now as well. So Mason Motorsports making their own manual style gearbox. It's slightly different from a manual gearbox as well, but still the same theory. So I think the simple fact behind it is it gives you more options for gear ratios rather than having to use your underdrive. So there's less of a gap between if you've got a gearbox that allow you to go from 0 to 200 k's an hour and you've only got 3 gears. Well, obviously your motor is going to drop out of its rev range a little bit, and then you've got to climb through. Whereas I remember when Greg Gartner first put that Albins in the second truck that he built. Yeah, with that full pipe and the X pipe and the full tailpipes, man. And I remember having a chat to a few people that had seen it testing and a few of the videos, and it just was almost like it was a 2-stroke. Like it was always up in its rev range. It was It was so good. But I think, yeah, look at the people that are changing over. You know, a lot of traditional trophy truck teams in America are doing it as well. You know, Concrete Motorsport, Harley Lentner, they've changed over
Mm,
to a
yep.
Mesa-matic as well, and having good success there. So yeah, I think that's that's a critical part of the build, and I think that's a really smart play by Paul Wheel there to go down that path of the Albans gearbox in it. Interestingly, a 6-speed though. I wasn't sure. I suppose once again that the math works the same way, and maybe like we were talking about in a previous pod, the trucks have a bit more drama pushing their panel work through the trucks, through the air.
Mm.
My apologies. So yeah, not a bad idea. I guess Toby runs a 6-speed, and OBR. I know they have a 5-speed, or probably a couple, but 5 speeds and 6-speed. So they have
Right.
changed between the boxes. Yeah. So yes, very
Oh, I
smart
didn't
by
know
Paul
that.
Will. Yeah. Yep. So very smart by Paul Wheel. I think going down that Albans path in that G6, but a couple of the photos on Instagram that guys has shared and that Paul has put up there, it's a beautiful, beautiful looking truck. But yeah, those big Fox shocks.
When you see it naked, Josh, with no panels on it, it's interesting because initially you don't think it's drastically different, but then you see it and it's very squat in the cab. You sit very low in it, and that's all those weight things that they've got going on. It's got those big J arms. It has plenty of suspension travel. They say that the G6 is a game changer with the two-wheel drive trucks, and that's going to be interesting. I mean, we can see some new technology trucks that are coming out now, and there's no question. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, they were fast back in the day, but you look at them now as they're going through the whoops and the big rough stuff like the Fox Proving Grounds at Mint, and they are honestly night and day from what we had 10 years ago, aren't they?
As in the geyser, like where geysers stood in the, I guess you'd say, the power rankings of trophy truck. Yeah, I mean they had a super successful platform. Like why? I guess the old statement, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and guys were operating off that. I mean, it was probably only 5 or 6 years ago you looked at any entry list, or sorry, any finishing list, and most of the top 10 trucks were a geyser truck. You know, when Andy McMillan first rolled out that full size geyser, you know, it was a heck of a rig, that's for sure. But yeah, I do agree. I think it's cool to see that guys are, you know, while being super successful, aren't just resting on their laurels to not change what they've built and have produced the G6. So super excited to see one in the flesh.
Yeah, sorry, probably what I more so meant, Josh, with that, but you're all right with all of those points. But what I was actually saying is like, you look at Rob McCachran's truck, right? And it is still a winner. He is still won outright. But if you look at it through the really big rough stuff, it looks like he's working much harder than the new trucks. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Sorry, I did go off on a bit of a tangent there, but I do agree. I think that, and that's just technology. You know, new ideas. Hey, we put a bit of weight here. We put a bit of weight back a bit, and we get that nose up, and we get it at honking through the rough stuff. So, but yeah,
Mm,
tell you what, Rob Mack. You look at some of those videos from the Mint in his truck. The old dog, he's still got it. He's going to
it's
be
unbelievable.
he's going to be America's version of Jeff Pickering, I reckon. 80 years old, hobbling around and still just smoking young fellas for a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
But
but it's
yeah,
interesting.
you go, Dan.
I was just saying because the other thing that's a huge leap forward, and now lots of the older trucks have been upgraded, but you know the likes of Kings and Fox, and there is many brands, but those are the two primary ones. On Paul Wheel's truck, we've gone with the Fox suspension on that one, and it's tuned by SDG. Now the interesting part about that is SDG has a lot of time out in Australia, and you know that's going to be a big advantage. Paul Wheel, that truck, you know, on a plane. Essentially, now it was at LAX about 3 days ago or so, and you know, as we record the podcast, but you know that plane's on its way over to Fink, and that truck's already going to be at, you know, peak performance. These guys, they've got that set up. It's not a new truck like you're building in your shed where you've got to start again. Talk about, this is a bit of a tangent, Josh, but this is what we do at Dirtbags, isn't it? Talking, you brought up Greg Gartner. What about the year he turned up with the truck that he built himself? It was the second truck that we're talking about, the one after he won Fink first, the first trophy truck to do so. first tin
Yep.
top. But then after he upgraded to the second truck and he turned up, and I believe it was the boys from SDG as well as Desert Speed Labs that were there, Josh, when we were there testing, and he ran it through those whoops so fast, and I mean so fast. The old mate said, "Get out of the way." SDG had never seen anything like it. And then he goes, "Hey, mate, those 3.5 shocks," because again, we're talking about the progression of shock absorbers and everything else that goes with it. Those 3.5s couldn't keep up. He said, "You need a set of these new Fox 4.0s." He said, "Where are they? I got my card on me."
Bolt them on the truck now. Have you got a set in the truck? Like, let's get it on here and get it set up for Fink, because as Greg Gartner, I think he's a bit like Ricky Bobby. He just wants to go fast.
I just want to go fast. He is the man.
Yep.
But no,
it'll
be interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's right. Paul Wheel's been over there. He's just recently raced the Mint 400. So I'm going to assume that he's been over there, done a bit of testing as well with the SDG boys. And I mean, why not? Why not? Like we were talking about Toby Price getting his motor sent back to Dugan's. I mean, why not? I mean, they're proven race winners, the SDG boys. Yes. They just navied this weekend, or a couple of weekends ago, at the San Felipe 250. Old Duncan. Yep. So Jason Duncan had a great run there with Luke McMillan. So I'd say, I think you're 100% right, DC. I think that car's going to roll out of the plane, not off the trailer. It's going to roll out of the plane, and it's going to be fast straight out of the box.
Yeah, it's all proven parts with a proven competitor. Now, an interesting side note of that, Josh, is Paul Wheel obviously has a lot of experience racing in many forms of motorsport, but how big a difference is it coming out of that confidence when you come fresh from Mint? Mint is so rough, so big that the roughness, now I don't want to say that it's not rough at Fink, but again, there's levels to this game. I feel like that might be a huge advantage for Paul coming fresh off that. I bet you he had a learning curve that was very steep in how hard you can hit things in that G6 geyser. So that's going to be interesting coming fresh off that, ready for Fink. He's got the seat time. He's got a lot of experience. I think it's going to be good, mate. It's going to be one to watch out for, PWR.
Fair call, Dad. Fair call. I think there's a lot of things to look at Fink. But yeah, awesome to see a G6 finally make its way into the country. There's been a lot of excitement around them before they've made their way here. So looking forward to seeing Paul Wheel's rig here in the country. So just a quick recap: Dugan's, Albans, Big Fox Shocks, G6.
The biggest ones. Give me the big ones. Yep. It's going to be a good truck.
Heck yeah.
So moving on from that, Josh, because we'll keep the trophy truck theme alive, because as well as that G6, we've got some new trophy trucks in the form of Mason Motorsport ones. We did talk about these a little bit, but the real key here that's going to be interesting is the difference between all-wheel drive, Brett Smoothie with the all-wheel drive truck, full-size truck. How does that go? Then versus Bo Robinson, he's getting the two-wheel drive truck, and I believe it is at a 6100 size. So both of those trucks are meant to be here again for the Fink Desert Race. So it's going to be interesting because these guys, it's new trucks. Are they up to speed with the new trucks? Is that a learning curve? We've seen in America where brand new trucks, the likes of Jesse Jones and that, they brought brand new trucks out and won. Andy McMillan's done it time and time again.
Well, I was just going to say Andy McMillan, when he switched into Mason for the first time and really sort of put Mason on the track. Was that Parker 425 as well, I believe?
Yeah, well, listen, Andy McMillan's done it time and time again. Remember when he bought the TSCO? He was running the first model. Yes, they were actually allowing him to use that truck, and he was unbeatable. But he was unbeatable in the geyser. Andy McMillan's a freak. That's all we can say.
Yeah, copy. But definitely put Mason Motorsport on the map, and they've definitely been on a sharp rise. So these will be the first two Masons in the country.
Wow, that's an interesting one because I'm scratching my head. New Mason. There is an old Mason floating around in Kalgoorlie.
Raglan Drilling.
That's right. So they had an older Mason back when. So for anyone listening at home, Mason's history is actually in the 7200 class, where they used to run V6 truck motors in an earlier style. It was like a small mini truck race class, and they built them out of their shed. And now they are building the absolute pinnacle of technology for the likes of Andy McMillan. That's crazy, Josh, because again, we were talking, what are we, 09, 2010, we were talking about these Masons. They were good, but they were definitely, I don't know. I don't want to bag them, Josh, but they were
Yeah,
a
no.
rougher quality.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
now
that
we're talking $1 million, absolute perfection. The tigging's perfect. The gear. Hey, mate, some of these Masons have air conditioning in them.
yeah, well, that's just what I was about to say. If you ever on YouTube, Fishgistics, shout out to the boys over in America there, Fishgistics. There is an awesome YouTube clip that is essentially a full walk around of Andy McMillan's four-wheel drive Mason. Yeah, like you said, air conditioning, some of the things this car has on it is just unbelievable. And they talk about the price, and I imagine it's probably pretty similar, but they were talking, yeah, $750,000 for
Wow.
a
Yep.
trophy truck. But I mean, it the best of the best, and like you said, their workmanship is top notch now. So Neil Mason done an amazing job over there of just starting off small and then, growing your brand, growing your skills, finding the right driver combination and taking it to essentially the ultimate elite level.
Mm. Well, Josh, all of these guys come from a racing driving background or two. Rick Geiser was a competitive trophy truck driver back in the day. I think it's important to recognize that a lot of these guys that come from that high performance background are also building great cars because they know what makes a great race car. They've been in the seat, they understand it. So I think that's a bit of key too, Josh, is that these guys have that experience behind them. And you're mentioning about how impressive these Masons are, and they've got to be because the Hoosman that Bryce Menzies used to have, it's just gone to Cole Potts. And, for essentially Bryce Menzies, the number 7, to have made that switch out of the 2 cars to just go to the 1 Mason and focus on that indicates just because, I mean, Bryce Menzies has the best of the best gear, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when they and almost a bit of a not a what's the word I'm looking for here? Not self-loathing, but a bit of a slap to his own face. I guess that Hoosman was something that Bryce was very closely worked with developing as well. So I mean, he's had
Mm,
to almost, like, probably not admit is the right word, but he's almost sort of had to admit, man, like, Mason are doing it a lot better than what we were able to do. So let's go down that path because some cool things in those Masons.
mm.
The
But
portal front hubs.
But does that come back to numbers? Like if you're churning
Yes,
over these all-wheel drive trucks, you've got that experience, you've got that shock development, you've got that testing. You've got these gearboxes now that are doing, that they've honestly probably done thousands upon thousands of development kilometers now. And that's interesting because that's the stuff that you can't get in a one-off hand-built truck. Going back to
absolutely.
this Robbie Gordon all-wheel drive, like Robbie Gordon builds some of the most amazing gear known to man, obviously, but his R&D is just his R&D. And, whereas Andy McMillan, Bryce Menzies, all these guys, are all getting this development out of this conglomerate of all-wheel drive trucks. And I think that can't be bought. Well, it can
Yeah,
be bought. You buy a Mason.
yeah. Well, you buy a Mason, exactly right.
Mm,
But yeah, I think another thing is you've hit the nail on the head there. There's now, I believe, 14 or 15 of these Mason trucks in existence.
but,
Like you list off some of the
mm,
people, like all the McMillans now race one. I think Jesse
yep,
Jones has got another one on the way. Um, Justin Lofton has made the switch. I believe
that's right.
Vistola's, whether Tavo is going to be racing
Yep,
one very shortly. Vistola's have one. Hey, look, Smoothie, Brett Smoothie's going to have one. There's a few,
yeah.
just a rogue one. Whatever happened to the original one, like Seraphus's original Mason? Is it
Mm,
still four-wheel drive? Is it still
y-
floating around somewhere?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
but you
wonder
are
if
right.
that might be Lofton's actually, because he bought
Yes,
that second hand.
yep,
So
yep,
but you're
copy.
right. There's a ton of cars out now, and that makes a huge difference. Going back to you're talking about geysers before, that's what they had. There was
Yes,
50 geyser trucks. That R&D you just can't get anywhere else. They've all got the same uprights. They've all got the parts. They've all got the diff. These guys, when they go, that part breaks, now all the 50 trucks get the upgrades, don't they?
yeah, and it just obviously. Yeah, there's no doubt that I'm sure if Bryce had stuck with it for a long time, he could have got that Hoosman super competitive. But yeah, exactly like you said, that R&D is fantastic. Those Masons are a heck of a truck, and it's going to be
Yeah.
awesome to see him in Australia. So a two-wheel drive 6100 is the OBR, so Bo Robinson. I believe it's pretty close and being ready to get shipped over as we record this podcast.
Yep.
It's running an Albans, so not running the Mason-Matic. I don't know for a fact what gearbox smooth he's going to be running. Be interesting to see whether it's an Albans or whether he's gone down the Mason-Matic. But what are some of the major differences between, without stating the obvious, like between a four-wheel drive Mason and a two-wheel drive Mason? So I guess one right off the bat is the two-wheel drive Masons are a normal motor, gearbox, differential configuration, whereas the four-wheel drives are actually mid-mounted for the motor.
That's right. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, for all the packaging so that you've got a center drive out the front, they've essentially spun it all backwards. So, you know how you've got an offset drop on a patrol and all the other sides, vehicles around. I believe that that's the way that it's arranged so that you can have a forward drive to the center, differential in the front.
Yep. So it also a center of weight and then also good driveline angle. So it's something that they've really thought out. And then one of the cool things that Mason does as well is they do run. So it's a solid rear diff and a independent front end in their four-wheel drives. And they, to reduce drive shaft angle, they actually have machined and manufactured their own portal drive uprights for the front of the trophy truck.
That's amazing, is that sort of development? But again, we've seen more and more, like even like Kibitech and those sort of companies, like they've now got these CNC 5-axis lathes and routers and all sorts of gear that has really changed the off-road game. We're now seeing billet control arms, billet uppers, lowers, spindle. Like it's amazing some of the stuff, and it's work of art quality, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, well, like you said, it's professional, but they are professionals, I guess. Professionals, what they do for sure. But yeah, it is.
Yeah, but I
It's
guess
almost
what you're
criminal.
trying to get at, it's almost like you'd seen it on SpaceX. Like it's that level
Yes,
of machine
yes, yeah,
shop
that's right.
quality where it's not. And again, because again, Jimco's in the 80s and 90s were professional. There's no question about that. They were building the best of the best at the time. Guys were building the best of the best in 2000s. That sort of thing is a fact. But as levels of machining has come up, and I suppose that's just technology of the time. In the 80s, you couldn't even fathom a
Yeah,
CNC, 5-axis, things that we've got now, could you?
no, absolutely not. And that's that's the point I was probably trying to make is as the rest of the world has progressed and as motorsports with very large financial backing has progressed, like Penske race teams and stuff like that. Yeah, off-road racing has not been left behind. Like if
Not at
anything,
all.
off-road racing is developing at like an exponentially quicker rate than this is just my opinion, but at an exponentially quicker rate than say like V8 supercars or NASCAR or anything like that. Like I mean, NASCAR only just went to fuel injection, so whereas
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting point. But is that to do with the fact that we are truly an unlimited class in off road? We can continually design. If you think of something mid season, you just pop it on. Whereas I suppose NASCAR and a lot of these, supercars and that sort of thing, they are restricted in their chassis design, aren't they? Little tweaks, little tweaks. But until they go to the next gen of cars, we're sort of stuck, aren't we?
yeah, absolutely fair point. Fair point. I do like it. Yeah, that they are probably due to massive corporate sponsorship. The parity is probably something that they play a
Yep.
lot more than V8s than what trophy trucks or class one buggies do. Like no one really comes out and goes, man, these Masons are unfair. Like I'm only running a two-wheel drive truck, so whereas that's the name of the game in off road.
Hey, Josh, no one wants parity. Look at the way they whinge about 6 liters.
If Kent Battle's
Sorry.
tuned out, shout out to Kent Battle. Is he sponsoring this podcast? Did he slip you $50
Yep.
to slip that one in
Yep.
there? Yeah,
Yep.
copy. Trans Racing. Thanks for the sponsorship of this podcast. But
Gold.
you are right. Parity is, well, it's an interesting point. It's probably something we could get a little off. We'll just touch it quickly, but I guess like in Australia we aren't really a truly unlimited.
Mm.
And is that a bit outdated in this day and age? Like, well, I mean, right now we are talking about there's a four-wheel drive Mason truck coming into Australia that is somewhere around the $750,000 US price tag, and we can't put any more than a 6-liter or a twin turbo V6 in it for cost reasons.
No, listen, it's an interesting one because I probably don't agree with the ruling. I'll prefix it with saying that. But it's interesting because I don't know if it's going to achieve what people want it to achieve. Because
Yep.
my concept of it is that if we now open it up to unlimited, but let's say 7 liters, which is fantastic. Again, I can't stress this enough. I'm all for it. But if you're spending $85,000 on a 6-liter, are you not going to spend 85,000 on a 7-liter? So
Yeah.
that goalposts are just going to move. So everyone's saying, oh, it'll be cheaper because we just buy a stock 7-liter and throw it in. No one's going to put a stock 7-liter in.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's 100% right. You're always gonna like chase that. It's a bit like white line fever. You're always going to chase the next little hit, the next little high. Like, I mean, we could have. I mean, I wouldn't change what we're doing anyhow. Like our little NASCAR motor that's going into the Jimco, the 5.8 liter. Like we're not even at 6 liters. It's a 5.8 liter, but I love that's the way I love motors, and we could have bought it from the States and put it in just carby fed and that, but we spent the money and put the 8-stack injection on it and everything like that because we wanted to get as much performance as possible out of it. You're 100% right. If you've got 75 grand to spend on a 6-liter, you've got 75 grand to spend on a 7-liter. So I guess that was my point of why not. And like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just opening up the conversation because I also do agree. I think it should be purely unlimited because I think that the cost saving reasons, or I guess it's a two-way street. The cost saving reason is not an argument to change the rule for or against. I don't think it's going to save any money in off-road racing, and I don't think people are going to spend any more money. They're just going to buy a different block.
Yeah, and that's interesting because probably the thought process is, so let's break it down a little bit, get the onion and open it up a little bit, Joshua. So out of interest, we know from a little bit of, back and forth, like Shannon Wrench actually had a Croyer V8, didn't he? So he was considering that option. So if a 7-liter or an 8-liter or a V8, an unlimited V8, say we still cap our turbo buggies at 3.5 with turbochargers, right? Because the argument is that, okay, they're faster, in the buggies and the trophy trucks essentially can't keep up. Let's call a spade a spade. They haven't got that, extra oomph to push. So if they open the cap up, are you telling me that the likes of Shannon Ranch isn't going to go, hold on, what I really need is an unlimited V8 in this car now. I'm going to put 480 cubes, of a stroker Chev in it, like a Brodex block thing. And then all of a sudden we're going to be at 1100 horsepower with one of these 8-stack motors. He's still going to have that advantage, isn't he? Like he's still going to be in the lighter car because I think this is what we've all got to understand in Australian conditions currently. The way it's not rough enough for a true unlimited truck class. Trucks shine when it gets silly rough. I mean, here's a prime example. Harley Letner has outrightly said to us, the Alpha is as fast as the Herbst truck. It's just that the Herbst truck does it like, again, I hate this, generalization of riding in a lounge chair, but his opinion is that the Alpha just beat him up a lot more doing it. And I mean, that guy has been on the top step of the podium in a pro buggy or a class 1 unlimited car when people didn't think that was a possibility. It can happen. The likes of Shannon can do it. There's no question there. And then once we get to this limit, because there's going to be a limit where you just can't do any more to it, then it becomes about, and we always, or I come back to it, is this win factor. It's why, again, Josh, DIRTBAGZ number, just the pod, I'm throwing things out there. That is why you see trophy trucks go into the pits and then all of a sudden the front ends just fall off these things magically. They can honestly pick up 20, 30, 40 kilometers an hour without that wind drag. Now, they look cool. That's absolutely true. But when do we get to the facts? I'm sounding like a true buggy dog here, Josh. But anyway, when do we get to the facts that the reality is that in Australian conditions, if you want to win, like Toby would be faster in a pro buggy. I said it.
Whoa.
I said it. I said it.
Whoa.
If you put
Do we have
Toby,
a mic so we can get dropped somewhere?
here you go, boom. I'm telling you, and it's not because, I mean, the trophy truck's cool. It gets all the sponsors. I understand that it's the cool thing.
Well, it's relatable. You like you see I don't know how many times I have to explain to people what my Jimco is, like what a Pro Buggy is, and you show them a photo, like, oh, cool, it's like a cool little RC car, and you're like, well, no, it's flipping huge, man. Like that's a 4-inch
Mud
shock,
racer.
and that's a mud racer, yeah, doing the Cabra mud drags, but that's a 4-inch shock, that's a 35-inch tire, like it's a big unit, man, and it's not a little
Well,
toy, but
it
yeah.
Yeah, 2.4 meters wide and, 120-inch wheelbase when a patrol wagon is only at that 116. It's a big race car.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, when you were talking about the trucks get the sponsors, it's because they're relatable. Like people look at it,
Agreed.
and yeah, like there's probably a couple of old mad dogs out there that are looking at Toby's, trophy truck like he's Triton and going, yeah, I crossed the Simpson Desert in my old Triton like that. So when it's
Can't frighten
yeah,
a Triton, mate.
you can't, mate. Ask Mickey B. But I think you're 100% spot on. It's that relatability factor. I mean, they look freaking cool. There's just something
They
about
do.
that. Yeah, there's something about the body work with the wheels dropping away that gives it a unique look compared to a unique look compared to Pro Buggies. But wow,
Yes.
throwing the mad chat out there, Denny Curran. You've heard it here first. Toby Price would be quicker in a Pro Buggy at Fink.
Listen, I'd love to be proven wrong, Josh. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think that Josh Howell's outright pace on the smooth stuff, or Shannon Reg, or Jack Rhodes, or Dave Fallows, like these guys, when they're running at that, again, 260 range on the dirt roads, that average time is just phenomenal. Now, again, where Toby's making that up is in the rough, over top of those dunes. He is that fast. Again, we talk about this all the time, and I don't want to knock Bo because that guy is a hell man. The guy is on the boost. But when you see him and he's just checking up, Toby's not checking up. He never let the foot off the gas for how many, 6, 7 dunes, Josh?
Yeah. And I mean, you look at the documentary that he put out this year. It's just how often that truck is in 6th gear, like flat out. It's so cool. Yeah. But hey, look, then that's almost like sort of the flip side to the unlimited argument is, well, 6 liters are winning at at one of the longest, fastest, openest races that we have in Australia. Like a 6-liter truck is winning. So why do you need more horsepower?
That's true.
We talk about doing a Fink special. We could probably get a few people on this podcast and have probably a few cans as well, and have a very good debate about the unlimited class. Like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'd build the Jimco exactly the same way as what we are now. But yeah, like you said, when we're talking about unlimited, oh yes, go.
Well, I was going to say, so are you saying, hey guys, hit up the socials, get on the podcast, Instagram, slide into those DMs, and if you want a good discussion about it, we'll love to have everyone on the pod. So
yeah,
give us a call
at DIRTBAGZ _podcast. Hit us up. And look, even anyone listening to this, like as fans of the sport, anyone should have not as much say, but we have fans have an input into the sport as to what they'd like to see as well. So hit us up on the Instagram and let us know what you think they should be doing with the unlimited style class. But like you said, we're talking about chassis, shocks, Motex, PDFs, Masomatics. Heck, V8 supercars do not even have paddle shift, and Toby's trophy truck has paddle shift. Heck, the Jaws Racing trophy truck, that Jimco trophy truck, had paddle shift 3 or 4 years ago. So like, where do we draw the line of where we're going to save money in the sport? Because it like at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun. And I mean, I don't begrudge anyone. Like if I had enough money to buy a 4-wheel drive Mason, bet your bottom dollar I'd be racing a 4-wheel drive Mason.
So Josh, that brings us to an interesting thing. So maybe we go back to then for the grassroots, chilled out, just looking for that top 10 spot. maybe these motors are a great thing because then you can get to say a 7, so 440 cube motor, something like that. That's a beast of a motor. You can get 700 out of it pretty easy with a decent 8 stack and some decent heads on it. You've got the cubes on your side, so it'll drive out of the corners. So for the guys not chasing that number one plate that are always going to go for that $85,000 motor, maybe that isn't like a huge advantage. For 20
Yeah.
grand with 440 cubes, you can build a hell of a small block Chev. Big
Yeah,
crank,
yeah.
aluminum heads, good induction. I mean, let's talk heat pumps. Air in, air out, make some motor, put fuel in it. It's going fast.
Boom.
So maybe that is a good, like, it's just an easy way to do it.
Yep, 100%. For your grassroots.
Well, I was going to say truly unlimited. Are we talking 5.7 truck LSs with turbos on the side, or what? What are we doing here? Because that's a cheap junkyard way to go very fast.
100%. I think at the truly grassroots form of off-road racing, I think opening it up to bigger motors would end up being, well, here you go. Now that I stopped and thought about it, would it be cheaper in the long run? Because now that you've got that, you've gone from 450 horsepower from your relatively stock 5.7, and you've just bunged a stroker crank into it, and now all of a sudden you're making 650, 700. Is your gearbox going to keep up? What are your shocks going to do? Are you going to start bending diffs? It always has a knock-on effect.
Josh, as you say it like that, the other issue is that it then becomes a bigger gap between the classes. We already have cars, that are sort of limited to 110, 120 Ks an hour. And now you've got a trophy truck coming through the packet, St. George, Gundawindi, whatever it is, where we do lap style races, and it's doing 240 kilometers an hour now. That's it's a big difference in speed, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know from Cam's point of view, or any of the governing body, it's always been about speed, hasn't it? That's their go-to, whether you believe it or not, but that's what they're worried about. Even down to they're trying to rein the turbo buggies in. But Josh, talking about unlimiteds, I didn't want to get sidetracked, but that does lead me into another car that I wanted to talk about, because I feel like this truly could be a game changer in Australia, an all-wheel drive pro buggy. Dan Brown, is starting to bring out this vehicle, Lumicraft, front diff, rear transact, like as in, all independent. How big a game changer could that potentially be in Australia, where, it's still only pretty light relatively, doesn't have those restrictions of the body panel, but all the four-wheel drive traction. Is that a true game changer right there? Because is there any other all-wheel
not a 79,
drive?
Dan.
Not
a 79, mate. We can't call it a game. We can't call it a game changer. But is it gonna run with the bulls?
It's definitely going to run with the bulls, because Denny Brown knows how to run with the bulls. That's not a question. But can it be a level in Australia where, if you don't have one, because that's where they're going over in America, isn't it? But what if you end up with this pro buggy, this Lumicraft, and they change the goalpost that much that it's like okay, well, we've got to have it now. Does Shannon Wrench move to an Lumicraft out of a Jimco? Surely not. He's been jerked, but he hasn't. He's had other race cars, hasn't he? It's just that he's been with Jimco so long. And it's been the formula. Jimco Aussie spec, twin turbo Nissan V6, Albin's gearbox, Fox shocks. You buy that package. That's the SR33 package, and you're in a car as good as anyone else. And that's
100%. Well, you talk about the SR33 package, and why not? But one of the interesting things I noticed at St. George, did you notice that Swindlehurst was back on Fox shocks? So that vehicle went to King's when it was with Comiskey, but it went back onto Fox's, not to start the age-old debate. We'll probably get flamed on for this in the socials after this, talking about Fox's and King's, and not to start that debate. But interesting that Swindlehurst bought the car, and whether he got the shocks off Comiskey and put them back on, and just obviously felt that was the right way to go. Whether that was a development thing or anything like that, knowing that, man, this car has won Australian championships, won pretty much everything that there is to win in this configuration. So is that what? Yeah, I get what you're saying. Is that what Danny Brown's new buggy is going to be? Well, the interesting question is is it going to come to Australia? Because I believe he's talking about leaving it and racing it in America for a little while. But whether that's just to do some research and development, because the RPI boys, RPI Racing, they've got an all-wheel drive Illumicraft over there they're racing. Now, actually, I believe that's actually Danny Brown's original Illumicraft. So his Illumicraft four-wheel drive was just about finished and very close, and then RPI came on the scene and wanted to buy one. And I believe Danny Brown sold it to them and sort of jumped onto the back of the queue to give RPI an option to make Baja last year.
And that probably makes a lot of sense, Joshua, because then you go down the path that you want those development kilometers. This is what we are talking about before with the Masons and that sort of thing. You've now got these kilometers put on the all-wheel drive system in the Illumicraft. They can fix it over in the States. Now, I believe the only reason that Danny Brown wasn't racing that over in the States is that dirty, the old COVID,
spicy
he
cough.
was the spicy cough. So the moral of the story is that he would have been there, but it's obviously a great opportunity rather than just sitting it in a shed. This car now has logged a ton of kilometers. He gets a brand new one with all that R&D, all the fixes, all the parts that, are updated. I think it's a great way to go. I mean, obviously everyone wants to be the first, but,
Yes.
And that brings us to another question. So if it's going to race in the States for a while, would you be smarter in Danny Brown? And Danny Brown's a very smart man. He has raced V8s and turbo cars. But when your turbo engine builder is in Australia and your car's going to stay in the States, do you put a Croyer, a Gibbs, a Dugans, put a V8 in it for a while and run that? Again, over there, they don't have the rules. So as in the restricted 6-litre rules. So, it's a great opportunity to go for a 440 cube Chev or Brodex or any of those type of things, isn't it, Josh?
If you're asking me personally, I'd put a V8 in it for now and race it in America that way. Like you said, you could copy the RPI formula, their engine builder and stuff like that, or not their engine builder, but something similar. And you're going to be in a pretty sweet spot. That's personally what I'd do. And then he's probably got a couple of turbo V6s lying around. He might be able to swap it back in, or is he just playing the waiting game and thinking if I do build a pretty healthy 7-litre or 7.5, 7.6, 440 cube or something like that, by the time I'm ready to bring it to Australia, will the rules have changed? And that's I'll be able to run it with the V8 here in Australia and be uber competitive. But an interesting point, because twin turbo V6, 900 horsepower, you've got the ability to wind the boost up, wind the boost down, and have a few different tunes and settings for different races, for different things you want to do. Hey, it could also be very interesting. Go over and do the 79 series, or change the game to the off-road racing in America.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely right. Especially on those fast graded road sections, that thing has got to be a weapon. So it's going to be interesting because, we see a lot. Again, it surprised us in Baja, didn't it, Josh, when we went over there, that there is a lot of sections that aren't these big, crazy whoops that you see in the Desert People videos and in the tuber, the YouTuber videos. There is a lot of graded roads. There is a lot of sections where those guys are really moving. And, that all-wheel drive buggy might be a huge advantage over there for those sections. And then, again, because we always talk about these average times and average speeds, at the moment, the trucks are ahead in the big stuff. The buggies are ahead on the road sections. What happens if that all-wheel drive takes us to a position where they're just leading the charge? Unlikely, I suppose, realistically, just due to the demand and the name of the drivers in those trophy trucks now. I mean, you've really got the best of the best that have now all stepped up into the Premier. I mean, even Harley Letner is now up in the trophy truck category in the 70 and slaying it. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and I guess you can't even just rule out the benefit of that extra drive, pulling out of corners, and being able to brake and turn, a lot better. But particularly, we're racing on dirt. You come out of a corner, you stand on the gas, you've got 4 wheels driving rather than 2. I mean, the way that trucks and buggies are set up, they squat quite well and do put a lot of power down to the ground. They are frighteningly quick for 2-wheel drive cars on dirt. But to have those front wheel drive, it's going to be super. Yeah, it's a cat amongst the pigeons. It's something I probably, until you mentioned it before, it's not something I really thought about, but it's a 4-wheel drive buggy coming to Australia. So, we spent a lot of time talking about the Masons and Hayden Bentley has a 4-wheel drive racer trophy truck here. It's just, yeah, but it's different that I think I've probably been so consumed thinking about 4-wheel drive trucks in the last 3 or 4 months that, yeah, Danny Brown has kind of slipped under the radar there with that. But I tell you what, check out his social media, Danny Brown's social media. He just put up some photos recently of the carbon body on that thing. Oh, sexy.
Yeah, get on his media too and tell him that he's got to get on the podcast. We'd love to have a chat to Danny Brown. He's an absolute legend and a funny man to boot, but he's pushing the game with what's going on at the moment.
Can do a backflip. Can do a backflip outside Gundawindi.
Perfection.
Mint.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
that leads
some
us.
of. Yeah, go DC.
Oh, I was just going to say, with all that motor talk and super fast 4-wheel drive things, that sort of leads us to another thing that I was going to talk to you about, Josh. Mate, the current state of 4-wheel drives in Australia. I don't know if, and I know it's probably all over the place. I mean, you see some wild ones in Dubai and, the all the UAE and those sort of things. There's obviously cool stuff in America always, but the game has been changed in Australia at the moment with the 4-wheel drive scene. I mean, Central Queensland's always been a bit of a hub of fast cars, but it's everywhere now. Like Josh, we were talking before about Jeffro Charles.
Yes.
He's got
Yep.
a
The big
supercharged,
fridge.
the big fridge GU
Yeah.
wagon, shoots flames. It's a wild bit of gear. Got a Harrop, H2 650 on the side of it, and on the top of
On
it.
the
You know
top
what
of
I
it.
mean?
Yeah. On the
Yeah,
top of it.
top of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
forcing the air in. And I
Yes.
mean, the fact that that car can now be driven from Western Australia on tour, and then
Yes.
come do the drag races over in Central Queensland, do all that sort of stuff, run up to fiveys, run through the dunes. I mean, not run through the dunes. I mean, just drive on the beach gently, and then head back to Western Australia, literally on tour. That is an impressive package. That was one day, it really wasn't a common thing. Hey, you had a silly, crazy supercharged nitrous GU. It was a race car. You didn't drive it
Yep.
across Australia. Whereas now, technology with these motors has just come so far. I think the biggest development, Josh, is in these head development. The way that you can buy all these air research and AFRs, all the stuff, and you just bolt these things on, and numbers that we dreamed about. So, in case you didn't know, as a dirt, the podcast, your host, we're dirty old Valiant boys. So back in the 90s and 2000s, we were building V8 Valiants and getting in there with the die grinder and porting our own cast heads and that. Numbers that we saw on flow benches, now a set of stock aluminium heads destroys them. And I don't mean
Yeah.
like it's close, like you wasting your
That's not
time
even close.
if you muck
Yeah.
around with cast heads. Like we thought it had to be done. Now you just ring up a speed shop, say, hey, mate, send me those 2.02 190 heads, get them on the way. And valve sizes,
For those
Josh, that
playing
you can
along at
find out.
home, I don't think that is actually a head number that Dan has just quoted. I think he's just made a number off his head. So that's not
No,
an official. I know. I'm just stirred.
no, inlet and exhaust valve sizing. Because again, back in the day, that was huge. So sorry if we just went a little bit tech heavy on you, but essentially what I'm saying now is you can buy so many high quality components. Plus the other thing, Josh, is these crazy engine swaps. Back in the day, you used to put an LS, but now what? You've got Barras, you've got Cummins, you've got Duramaxes, you've got, mate, the world is your oyster with these things. They've got 4.8s in earlier GQs, there's just so many conversions that you can do now to 4-wheel drives, and everyone's doing them. All these little punks with all this money. I don't know where you got all your money from, but
I was
I'm
broke as
super
an
impressed.
apprentice. I mean, super broke as an apprentice. I
Mate,
don't know where their money comes from.
There's apprentices with a 79 series single cab and a Barra motor going in it. How the heck do you afford that? I love it. You guys just, mate, mortgage the house, build some cool cars, because I tell you what, we love seeing it on Instagram. Again, tag
100%.
us in. But, mate, there's so much great stuff out there now, and it's so fast and it's so impressive, because then that leads us to some of these new events. Again, we were talking a little while ago about Land Cruiser Mountain Park and how that shaped a lot of off-road races in Queensland. It's now no longer with us, but there's plenty of racing to be done in Australia and Queensland. But one of the cool things that's come up now is this, what is it called? The Dobbo's King of the Strip.
Yeah. It's an actual bitumen drag event, but it is for 4-wheel drives. So it's sponsored by Dobinson Spring and Suspension, which is a company out of Rockhampton in central Queensland. So it's an idea they came up with. Because I think, honestly, there was a lot of rubbish getting talked around fires, getting talked around cars, a few cans on the beach at Five Rocks or Farnborough Beach or someplace like that. Probably a lot of smack getting talked on the internet. And the guys at Dobinson said, well, stuff it. Let's get onto Cams, let's get onto Benarabi. Sorry, not Cams. Andra. Let's get onto Andra. Let's get onto Benarabi. And let's run an event. And let's actually run these things down the quarter mile and let's see what they do. Because there was probably a few people that were surprised at how fast their car was. There's probably a few people that were surprised at how slow their car was as well. But that's the game. But yeah, a very, very cool event. So Dobinson's spring and suspension, the four-wheel drive king of the strip. So that is 4th of June, and approximately $6,500 in prize money up for grabs across the different categories. I think they keep it pretty simple. There's petrol standard, petrol modified, and diesel. So they keep it pretty simple. They don't want to be racing 15 different classes there. But yeah, it's a very, very cool idea.
So obviously Benarabi, for you listen along, that's in central Queensland. It's sort of somewhere near Gladstone. And obviously Google's your friend. Google Maps will get you everywhere. But it's worth a look. I mean, it is the weekend before Fink, so it's going to be tight for some people. But if you're cruising around in Brisbane and you're looking for something to do, what a weekend. Come on up to Gladstone and check that place out. That's a bit south of us. We're a bit further north up here in Yeppoon. But what a great race, Josh. It's going to be interesting. And like you said, it'll be interesting to see some of these cars because back in the day, probably there was no specific builds for it. And even though there's no specific builds now, a few of the guys have really stepped up the game, like Alan Cornick with the Turbo LS car.
Yep. And also the Pig Motorsport boys, they've done a good job there. That E85 turbo, and I mean it's a monster single turbo on the side of that GQ Shorty panel van. Like, it's cool, man. They've panel van the back of that Shorty, so they've done a great job there. So,
it's definitely Dubai spec, that one.
Yeah, coffee. It's definitely a glow up from the original condition that he brought that car in. So a big shout out there. It's a cool car, and like you said, so then there's a couple of turbo 4.8 GQ shorties, there's Duramax diesels, there's lots of different, there's probably a couple of hottie TD42s, and the great part about King of the Strip is it's only 400 meters, it's a quarter mile. So there's a fair chance. I'm not gonna guarantee it, but there's a fair chance that your TD42 is not going to overheat doing a run down the strip. Boil. So might not boil. It might not get to the end. The crank might not make it to the end as well, but it might not boil.
Yep. Just break that rod main journal straight off like they all do. Sorry. But listen, the other thing, Josh, is that there is different classes. Like you were talking about diesels, like there's Cummins, there's Duramaxes, but isn't the fastest car there a little Suzuki hardtop Sierra with a rotor in it?
Yeah, 13B turbocharged rotary in it. That's I believe it was doing mid 11s. I think it just knocked off Jeffro. So Jeffro was doing 1180s, and the little Sierra just knocked him off. So yeah,
mate,
pretty
can
cool.
You imagine holding onto a Suzuki Sierra, short wheelbase Sierra, hard top? We wouldn't want a crosswind, but for an 1150 drag strip type, that is nuts.
No, it doesn't sound like. Well, look, it's a heck of a party. I don't know if it sounds like my idea of a good time, but I mean that you're not gonna. Well, I suppose you'll see it a few other places, but it's not a common sight. So yeah, make sure that you put that in your calendar. So that's the 4th of June, and it's going to be cool. Like you said, there's so many cool cars that are going to be there. The event's only gone from strength to strength, and I heard a little rumor that maybe, if I get it right, there is a full Dubai spec. It's called Evil GQ, and essentially it's it just recently competed in the drag week or the drag weekend that Street Machine run here in Australia, and was running some pretty impressive figures. But there's a little rumor it might be rocking up, so that would be worth the price of admission alone.
Absolutely. I mean, it was on the cover of Street Machine, wasn't it? Just this last episode. So
Not that long
that's
ago,
how big these 4-wheel drives and this racing scene's got. Very, very cool. got to be hard, Joshua. There's, what are they, 2.2 ton or something? You really got to move that weight compared to like a 1.34 ton, early Holden or something like that. Extra ton's not going to help you.
No, that's well, and even that little Sierra, it's smart thinking by that guy fresh off the gate that he's running, a lightweight motor and gearbox combination, and in probably one of the lightest 4-wheel drives out there getting around. So, like you said,
Yeah.
a bit of a it's going to be an interesting weekend. We're hoping to make it down and get there and have a bit of a look. It is the weekend before Fink, so might be a busy little period for us, but yeah, we will hopefully get down because unfortunately we missed the last one, but would love to get down and check it out.
Absolutely. Now, interestingly, Josh, because this is something that literally just popped to my mind while we're chatting away.
Love it.
Where does this lead? Because what's been the real big driver of this 4-wheel drive scene and the lifestyle and everything else is the social media aspect of it, isn't it? Like nowadays, you can get on and you can see other people's builds. That drives other people's builds. The other thing is that you can see other areas that you've never seen. I know myself when I'm going up north or down south or whatever I'm doing on tour and having a look, because I mean, I'm an old boy now. I like going away and going on a bit of a tour for a couple of weeks, and we were up north in Christmas just chasing waterfalls, just camping. If I can sleep in a swag, I love it. But all that stuff now, when you're doing your research, you don't have to look up the old map or anything, do you? You get on Instagram, have a look around the area, see, you do the Google search. That's an interesting game changer, isn't it, Josh? And something that's definitely changing. Again, I'm talking for me, I'm an old boy, but it's changed in our generation the way that social media has perceived forward driving. And I got to be honest, Josh, seeing as we talk about all subjects, that's good and bad. I mean, there's absolutely stuff that people are putting on social media that probably shouldn't be on social media.
Yeah.
Probably need to be a bit smarter about a bit of that sort of stuff. But then the flip side is that there's some amazing photos, there's some amazing cars, there's some amazing locations that when you're stuck of a night or something along those lines, or you're chilling out and having a cold drink, you can get on and have a look through Instagram. You can have a look at Facebook, YouTube. There's so much stuff now that we're just flooded with this information about race cars. Like, again, back in the day, you used to have to wait. Remember there was a magazine called Dirt Sports? It used to come over from America and, had your Jeep with coilovers on it. You were over
Yeah.
and it had a trophy truck in it. We'd never seen a trophy truck before. Man, I'm really showing
Peterson's.
my age. Peterson's, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah, that's
you
right.
just couldn't wait for that 1 month that book would come out, and you devour it like start to finish multiple times. And nowadays, and again, I'm not saying that it's bad, it's good, is that we're flooded with informations about specific builds. We can look up information, we can look at stuff on the other side of the world that no one knows about. It really is an amazing time for dirt sports. I feel that it's really pushed the envelope. It's made people a lot more aware. Even what we're trying to do. Listen, guys, this DIRTBAGZ podcast, we just want to have a good time and chat and tell stories and sort of capture that, because I know as part of our off-road experience, we've heard stories from the guys that we want to interview. Again, we can't wait to get some guys on and chat about the old
And
times.
girls.
And girls. Sorry, definitely want to talk to the girls as well. But what I guess I'm saying is now, Bob Stansfield is no longer with us, and that's heartbreaking because that guy was beyond an off-road legend. And as we go on, I don't want to sound morbid on this podcast, but we're going to lose some of these guys that had that 70s, 80s, 90s racing history where they had, bugs upside. I want to hear Ryan Taylor talk about how he reversed across the line and the full story behind. So again, trying to get very interactive here, Joshua. Obviously make sure if you're on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe, comment. We want to get into these stories. If you've got a great story to tell, how about you hit us up on the socials? We've got the
Yep.
emails. Sorry, mate. It sounds like I'm trying to wrap this podcast up, and I'm genuinely not. I just want to, as an early start, what we want to know is, again, the stories you guys want to hear. We want to cover all of off-road racing. So again, I've gone into a bit of an odd, but it's only because it's an early podcast, and I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying. We're loving getting the feedback. We love what's going on, but we want you guys to know that this is really, we want it to be your podcast too. We want to hear stories from, four-wheel drivers, off-road racers, motorbike riders.
Yeah. Yeah, I was almost going to say the People's Podcast, but we might get sued by Hamish and Andy if we go
Yeah,
down that
no,
path.
no.
So,
We're definitely
yeah.
dirtbags.
Yeah, that's right. No, and that is true. Like you said, we don't want to just be like we stated in the original podcast, is our primarily background is off-road racing, but we definitely want to cover all things dirt. But to
Absolutely.
circle back to what you first talked about with social media, I think you're 100% right, Dan. And just there's so much
Hey, Josh,
information.
you're
Yeah,
correct. I am
yeah,
right.
yeah,
As sooner you learn that, the better.
yeah, yeah. Way to kill the vibe, Dan. No,
Sorry, mate.
I've lost my train of thought. Yes, we were talking about social media and the amount of information that these young fellas have at them, and just to build, and the inspiration to build cool stuff. You were talking about Petersons and those 4-wheel mags that we used to get out of the States, because to get that Jeep stuff and that early Toyota stuff, and you set me up. We were doing a train trip down to Brizzy to buy a set of 35s for my Hilux at the time.
Yep.
And the whole way down, we just were reading those Peterson mags and looking at them. And what was the Ultimate Adventure? There was an Ultimate Adventure special that we're reading. It was just so cool. And we got down to ARB Southside, and I'm like, yeah, give me a set of them BF crawlers you got in the window there. And he goes, oh, do you want they're 37s? I thought on the phone you said you want 35s, and I was just so inspired by what I'd seen. I was like, hell no, man, give me them 37s. So I was easily swayed by looking at a magazine for a couple of days. I can understand why these young fellas these days are building off the wall cool 4-wheel drives, because of social media. And like you said, that is the good side of it. There's obviously, like you said, the bad side. A lot of stuff gets posted, that probably shouldn't, but no hate, because like you and I, we probably did a lot of the similar stupid stuff. We just didn't have social media. Like you talk to anyone, that's a little bit older, they say we did the same silly crap when we were 18. We weren't able to, put it out to the world the way these young people are. But they don't know any different. So yeah, no hate. Like, good on them. They're having a good time, and it's awesome.
They are having a ball.
And that's the good side of it, I think, is there's that inspiration to build cool stuff. And a lot of these young guys and girls are spending, they're inspired by what they see on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and they get into it, and I think it's why we're seeing so many. Well, man, 5 years ago, a Barra conversion was like a bit of an oddity. Now they're everywhere. And that's not hating on them again. It's just, it's awesome to see the progression of the way that things have been going. And I think social media plays a big part of that.
Absolutely. Josh, maybe even down to the fact that it helps because now you know how to build it right. If you build a roll cage or a steam pipe manifold for your turbo or what, you're not just blindly going, oh, I just think a bit of steel goes here. You can look at other people, true race car professionals, doing designs and doing, there's so much available now, even down to CAD and that online, that, you can probably build a car so much better than what we were doing back in the day, where you're realistically going, oh, well, that fits, and this fits, and hopefully it's as good, that's as good as it can be. Even down to, the old hashtag weld porn, if you're doing a bad weld these days. If it's on social media, you got to drop them dime bags. You can't do a dirty old stick weld. So,
back in our day, CAD was it wasn't AutoCAD, it was cardboard aided design. We used to cut bits of cardboard out and use them to see if things would fit. So CAD was definitely very different back when we were young fellas. But yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, if you want to learn something, like, hey, I want to learn how to TIG weld, you can jump on YouTube. You can Google basics, and rather than having to read, like, you can actually see someone show you, hey, like, see the way it's splattering here, or the noise that it's making, and they can actually, you can visually see it and have someone teach you. It's a fantastic,
it's a game changer.
Yeah, it's not a 79, Dan. It's not a 79. But
I don't know why you keep bringing those things up, mate.
Well, you keep saying game changer.
I wanted to get me mate Mac Preston on. I rate Mac Preston and no wasted weekends on the old. No, he bought a Toyota Land Cruiser, mate. He sold the Ranger. It's gone, and he's got a Sandy Torp dual cab 79. So Mac, if you listen, I don't know what to do, mate.
Wait, but they definitely built some very cool stuff in that shed. And man, like,
yes, they do.
with not a lot of stuff, like you said, like, and not, yeah, it's very cool. Hey, actually, super weird. Yeah, did he buy a Sandy Troop 79 that has? Does it have like blue, like like a blue business up the side that he's like pulled the stickers off? Is this so? This is super weird. So I was down in the sunny coast on the weekend, and I'm pretty confident that I actually pulled up next to that car. I didn't recognize who was in it, so I don't know whether it was.
There you go.
But I'm pretty confident I pulled up at that car at like a little IGA shopping like center in Highfields, like on the Sunshine Coast. So I don't know where they're from. They're somewhere in Queensland, but it was only on his social that I seen he bought a new car, and then like that was yesterday, and then yeah, it was on the weekend I was down there. So weird.
That's
weird. Might have had a little 6 degrees of separation there.
Wowzers, brush with fame, Josh.
Well, for him, no. But
does he know who I am?
Yeah, he wouldn't have a clue, and that's probably a good thing. But yeah, like 100%. What they build in that shed, like some of those things, you know, with putting airbags into some of those low riders. Yeah, it's very cool. Like they
do lots of cool stuff, and I love the K truck now that he's building. Have you seen that?
Yes. On the
it's got an old Chev truck, and that's awesome, man. It looks so cool. So yeah, very big tires on that thing too. So no doubt it'll be fascinating to see where he gets with that build, because their team is very talented and they do a lot of very cool stuff in that shed life. And so there's one to follow as well, guys. If you're following along and you like the social media stuff, get on board with those guys.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, like you said, I think a video I watched the other day, they actually couldn't fit the truck in the shed, so they had to like park it halfway out. So it's only a tiny shed, and yeah, it's actually it's awesome to see guys doing stuff like that with very little.
We love that, don't we? So in case you don't know it, you haven't been on any of our stuff, I mean, we build race cars in a little 2-bay with a single hoist, don't we, Josh? Like, that's what we do. We rebuild our gearboxes and shocks and everything in-house. Not because we want to, but because we're poor, got no money. So we got to go racing some way or another. So, you know, we've got a little small team and we build a lot of stuff in-house. Some of it might not be very good, but we're proud of it. And we have a good time racing. That's the key.
Yeah, that is the key, Dan. That is the key. I think that's the important part. Like you said, we love what we get to do. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, DC, I reckon probably not a bad time to wrap it up. It's been a pleasure.
Like it.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat off-road racing with you on a random school night. But it's getting getting time to wrap it up.
The off-road. Yeah, there's plenty going on in the off-road world, and it's interesting, Josh, and I love talking about it. Again, can't stress this enough. I know I've said it, but seeing as we're in the early stages, we want to be interactive. So if you've got something to talk about, hit us up. Let us know.
Yep.
We'll have a chat. Heck, if you want to come on the pod, hit us up. We love it.
Yep. So a couple of ways to get in touch with us is either our personal social medias, so at Josh Curran 41 and at Offroad Cartel. We also have a Instagram for the podcast, which is at DIRTBAGZ _podcast, and that's DIRTBAGZ with a Z. And then also we have an email account as well, which is dirtbagspodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. So hit us up. We want to be interactive. We want to be talking to the people. We want to be talking about what you guys want us to be talking about. Anything that's off-road, whether it's you know of a good camping spot, a good, you know, the Brisbane 4-wheel drive show's coming up, and you know there's going to be a game changer there. You can you know, we might be able to get some pics up and stuff like that as well on our on the YouTube and stuff like that. So yeah, we want to be interactive. We want to be around the people, and we're looking forward to producing many, many more episodes.
We sure are.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for getting all the way through. And as we wrap it up, don't forget, if you're the last one there, it's the first shout.